Don't forget to like and subscribe to Jolie Knots Crochet. Share with your friends. Hit that little notification bell so you can get notified when new patterns release. All our videos are available in left and right-handed tutorials. Hi everyone, welcome back to Jolie Knots Crochet. I'm Crystal and today we're going to be making this Boho asymmetrical wrap. Now with this wrap, I did use two different kinds of yarn. It can work in any yarn as long as you go up a hook size from your recommended hook size. You want to make sure that it's got this really nice, beautiful drape, just like that. Okay, this yarn right here, this one is Summer Nights by Lions brand. It is a 7-ounce ball with 875 yards, and I used 1.5 skeins of the Island Breeze color for this. It is categorized as a super fine yarn. It is 82% acrylic, 18% polyester, and the recommended hook size for this is 3.5. I did use a 4mm on this project. Now I'm going to go ahead and put the sizing up. This pink one measures approximately 96 inches long, and the cream one measures 64 inches long. Now the idea of this is to be able to stop at any stopping point that you have. So it's asymmetrical, so it's not supposed to have symmetry. I grew both of them to the longest point of 32 inches. When you get to your point, so measuring across this way, both of them are 32 inches. Now this one I stopped while my decrease was at 24 inches, and in this pink one here I stopped at 12 inches. So it's a lot longer because in the decrease we're only decreasing 1 stitch per row. In our increase we're increasing 2 stitches per row. All right, so for this white one, this is the one that we're going to be making today, and the yarn that we're using is Lamia Wool Easy. These come in 100-gram balls. We're using 3 balls for this size. The hook size, it recommends a 4. I used a 6mm. So that ended up working out really nice. The color is cream, but here it's just got a number for the color. And it is 80% acrylic and 20% wool. For the Lamia wool cream colored that I used 150 grams to increase. And then when I got to my 32 inches that I wanted, you can grow it to more or less, I used 150 more grams to decrease. Now, you can use more going to your decrease, of course. You can use less if you like. The idea is that it's very customizable to the size and the length that you want. So let's go ahead and grab your hooks. You're not going to need any stitch markers, just your tapestry needle. The hook that we're using today to make the cream one is a 6mm hook. And you're just going to need a tapestry needle to be able to weave in your ends, and that's it. That's all you need. So go ahead and grab your materials and your yarn. Like I said, any yarn going up a hook size or 2 and you will be good to go. Okay, so the way I'm starting mine is with a magic ring. I prefer the magic ring so my ends can close nice and tight, but if you prefer to chain 3 and slip stitch to the beginning, go ahead and do that. It's not a problem. We're going to chain 2, that does not count as a stitch, and then we're going to put 3 double crochets into our ring. 1, 2, 3. If you need a tutorial on the magic ring that's a little bit slower, I'll go ahead and leave the link in the description box. That is the end of your first row. 3 double crochets only. Now we're going to chain 2. That does not count as a stitch. At the beginning of every row we're chaining 2 and it does not count as a stitch. Now we're going to put 2 double crochets in our first stitch. We're going to double crochet into the next one, and then 2 double crochets into the last stitch. This is the first row of your repeat. 2 double crochets into the first, double crochet into every stitch until you reach the end, and you'll have 2 double crochets at the end. This is the end of your second round. Next, we're going to chain 2 and turn our work, and we're going to put 2 double crochets in the first stitch. We are having 2 double crochets in the first and the last stitch of every increase round. We're increasing 1 stitch per row. Now what we're going to do, this is going to be our fillet row. So here's your repeat. Chain 1, skip 1, double crochet. You'll do that all the way to the end. Chain 1, skip 1, double crochet until you reach your last stitch, and you will put 2 double crochets into your last stitch. Just like so. And here's what your work should look like now. Getting started on row 4, we'll chain 2, turn our work, 2 double crochets into the first stitch. This will be our puff stitch row. Chain 1, skip 1 stitch, and into your chain space we'll put a puff stitch. So we're going to yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull up a loop. So we'll do that 3 times, and you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 loops on your hook. You'll yarn over, pull through 6 loops, so you have 2 left, and then yarn over and pull through your remaining 2. Now we're going to chain 1, skip 1 stitch, puff stitch. That is your repeat. Chain 1, skip 1 stitch, puff stitch. All the way to the end. Okay. When you get to the end, you'll chain 1, you'll skip 1 stitch, and you should have 1 stitch left, and that's where you'll put your 2 double crochets. 1 and 2. At the end of your round 4, this is what you should look like. Next, we're going to do another fillet row. So we're going to chain 2, turn our work, and into the first stitch, we'll put our 2 double crochets. Now our repeat is to chain 1, skip 1 stitch, into the chain space, put a double crochet. Chain 1, skip 1 stitch, into the chain space, we'll put a double crochet. And again, chain 1, skip 1 stitch, into the chain space, double crochet. When you have no more chain spaces left, you will chain 1, skip 1 stitch, and into the last stitch, we will be putting 2 double crochets. Now this is what the end of your 5th row should look like. Getting started on row 6, this will be our solid row. You will repeat rows 2 until you get the desired width that you want as far as the length down your back. Both of mine I increased to 32 inches going along this way. From here, I'm going to show you the increase for the 6th row, and then I'm going to show you how to start decreasing. So you'll just continue on and on and on until you get as big as you like, ending on a solid row, and then we'll begin our decreases. So from here, we're still increasing 2 stitches into the first stitch, and then we're putting double crochets into every single stitch and every single chain space all the way down, every single one. And here's my last stitch. I've got 2 double crochets into my last one, you're repeating that. You are going to repeat rows 3, 4, 5, and 6 all the way until you get to the length that you want, or the depth that you want. And here is when we're going to start our decrease. You will always end on a solid row, and we will begin our decrease after the solid row. Okay, so here is my round 7. I'm going to chain 3. Your chain 3 does not count as a stitch. Now we're going to skip 2 stitches, so 1, 2. Into our 3rd stitch, we're going to put a double crochet. And now our repeat is to chain 1, skip 1 stitch, double crochet into the next. Chain 1, skip 1 stitch, double crochet into the next. So as you're going to see, is we are going to decrease on one side by 2 stitches, but we're going to continue to increase on the other side. So this side is still going to be an increase where we're going to put our 2 stitches. Okay, so here's what you should look like. You should see your decrease begin, but this side will always be the same. Getting started on row 8, we are going to chain 2, turn our work, and remember I said this side will always be the same. We'll always have our increases. So we're going to put our 2 double crochets into that stitch, that first stitch. Now this is our puff stitch row. So remember our repeat. Chain 1, skip 1 stitch, puff stitch into the next. 1, 2, 3, pull through all but the last loop, and then pull through 2. Chain 1. 1, 2, 3, pull through all but the last stitch, chain 1, pull through the last 2, and then chain 1. 2, 3. And you're going to repeat that all the way until you have 1 more space. That's it. You're going all the way till you have 1 more space. And in this case, because our chain 3 did not count as a stitch, this is technically our last space. So what we're going to do in our last space, after you puff stitch and you chain 1, we're going to double crochet 2 together from our last space and our last stitch. Partial double crochet, and then into the last stitch, partial double crochet, and pull through all 3 loops. And this is what the end of your 8th row should look like. Getting started on our 9th row, we're going to chain 3. From here, we're going to double crochet 2 together again, but we're going to double crochet 2 together over our spaces. So our first partial is going here, our second partial is going here. Our chain 3 won't count as a stitch, so the first technical stitch in this row will be your double crochet 2 together, just like that. Now continuing on with our fillet row, we're going to chain 1, skip 1 stitch, double crochet into the next. Chain 1, skip 1 stitch, which is our puff stitch, and double crochet into the next. We're doing that all the way until we double crochet after our last puff stitch, and then we'll chain 1, skip 1 stitch, and put 2 double crochets into the last stitch. Just like that. This is what your work should look like so far. Okay, now the last row that I'm going to show you is our row 10 decrease row. Our decrease row, this is our solid row, and this is how you're going to work every solid row. So we're going to chain 2, not counting as a stitch, turn your work, 2 double crochets into the first stitch. Double crochet into every single stitch until you have 3 stitches left. Okay, whoops, I went one extra one. Our 3 stitches left will be our double crochet, our chain space, and then our 2 double crochet together will be the first stitch, because remember, our chain 3 does not count as a stitch. Now to end out this row, we're skipping our chain space and we're going to double crochet 2 together over our last double crochet and over our double crochet 2 together. Just like that, and that's how we'll end our decrease solid row. So you will repeat rows 2, 3, 4, and 5, repeating solid fillet, puff, solid fillet. Okay, that's how it's gonna go. Solid fillet, puff, fillet. Solid fillet, puff, fillet. Solid fillet, puff, fillet. Just like that, all the way across, okay? So, increase, 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 and then you'll start decreasing 1 stitch because we're still increasing on the other side. So continue working that out until you get to where you want and you'll have finished. It's a very, very simple, easy project.